They thought I wouldn't notice. They thought they could quietly step onto my land, drill deep into it, and walk away like nothing happened. But they didn't understand one thing. Land remembers. And sometimes it fights back. The truth is, I didn't always live there. And maybe if I hadn't chosen that land, none of this would have happened. But I did. And looking back now, it feels like everything that happened after was already waiting. Before it became my home, that land was just a quiet stretch of earth, untouched, unbothered, sitting right on the edge of a perfectly organized suburban neighborhood. You know the type. Perfect rows of houses, every lawn trimmed exactly the same, every driveway clean, every mailbox identical. At first glance, it looked peaceful, controlled, safe. But the more you looked, the more you realized it wasn't peace, it was control. That neighborhood was run by an HOA, and if you've ever dealt with one, you already understand what that means. Rules. Endless rules. What color your house can be, how high your fence is allowed to go, where your car can be parked, how long your grass can grow before you get a warning. And those warnings, they don't come politely. They come like threats, fines, notices, violations. It's the kind of place where everything looks perfect, but nothing feels free. And that's exactly why I stayed outside of it. My property wasn't part of their system. No HOA, no rules, no oversight, just land. My land. I remember the first time I saw it. It was quiet. Not the kind of quiet that feels empty, but the kind that feels alive. The wind moved gently through the trees. The ground felt solid beneath my feet, and there was a stillness there that you don't find in controlled places. It felt real, and in that moment, I knew this was it. I didn't need anything fancy. I wasn't looking for luxury. I just wanted space, freedom. A place where no one could tell me how to live. So I bought it. And slowly, I built my life there. The house was simple, a small farmhouse, nothing special to look at. But it was mine. A wide wooden porch stretched across the front. 2 old chairs sat there, worn but comfortable. That became my place. Every evening, I'd sit there, watch the sky change colors, feel the air cool as the sun disappeared behind the trees. And those trees? They weren't just trees. They were history. Tall, strong, deep-rooted. Some of them had probably been standing there longer than I'd been alive, maybe longer than the neighborhood itself. They formed a natural barrier between my land and theirs. Not a fence, not a wall, but something better, something real. They didn't need rules to stand where they stood. They didn't need permission. They just existed. And for a long time, so did I, peacefully. Days turned into weeks, weeks into months, months into years. Nothing changed, and that was the best part. No complaints, no notices, no interruptions, just life. Until one day, something changed. At first, it was easy to ignore. A faint sound, far away, almost unnoticeable. A low, mechanical hum. I remember sitting on the porch that evening, listening, trying to figure out what it was. But it didn't feel important, so I ignored it. Probably construction inside the neighborhood. That's what I told myself. And I went back to enjoying the quiet. But the next day, it came back, louder. Not overwhelming, but noticeable. Enough to break the silence. I paused again, listened. Same sound, same direction. Still didn't feel like a problem. Until the 3rd day. That's when it changed. The sound didn't just come and go. It stayed, constant, relentless, and louder than before. It wasn't background noise anymore. It was intrusive, like something was forcing its way into a place it didn't belong. By the 4th day, I couldn't ignore it anymore. It was aggressive, heavy, like metal grinding against earth, like something was digging deeper and deeper and deeper. That's when the feeling hit me. Something wasn't right. Not just the noise, but the direction it was coming from. It felt too close. So I stood up, stepped off the porch, and started walking toward the edge of my property. Each step, the sound grew louder, sharper, heavier. The ground itself felt different, not shaking exactly, but reacting, like it knew something was happening. And then I saw it, a drilling rig, massive, industrial, out of place. It didn't belong there. The metal structure towered over the ground. Pipes, cables, machinery, all working together to force their way into the earth. The sound was overwhelming up close. Workers moved around it, busy, focused, setting up equipment, monitoring controls, drilling deeper, like it was just another normal job, like they had every right to be there. But they didn't, because they weren't inside the neighborhood. They weren't behind the HOA boundary. They were standing on my land, and for a moment, I just stood there, frozen, trying to understand what I was seeing. Because sometimes, when something is so wrong, your mind refuses to accept it. But this wasn't confusion anymore. This was real, and it was happening right in front of me. So I walked toward them. No hesitation now, no doubt. Just one question in my mind. What do they think they're doing? I approached one of the workers. He looked at me, calm, unbothered, which made it worse, because it meant one thing. He didn't think he was doing anything wrong. I asked him, "What are you doing on my property?" No anger in my voice, just clarity. He shrugged. "We've got approval from the HOA." That answer, it changed everything. Because in that moment, I realized something dangerous. They didn't know. Or worse, they didn't care. I told him clearly, "This is private property, mine. Stop immediately." He didn't argue, didn't challenge me, but he didn't stop either. He just stood there, caught in the middle. And that's when I understood. This wasn't his decision. This came from above him. Higher, stronger, more careless. The HOA. And in that moment, I knew this wasn't going to be simple. Because people like that don't back down easily. Especially when they think they're right. Or worse, when they think they're untouchable. And that was just the beginning. Because what they were drilling into wasn't just land. It was something buried, something unstable, something dangerous, something that had been there for years, waiting. And they had just disturbed it, without knowing, without understanding, without caring. And soon, everyone would pay the price. They didn't stop. Not after the warnings, not after the legal notice, not even after I showed them proof. Because in their minds, they were untouchable. That's the thing about people who think they have control. After a while, they stop listening. And when they stop listening, they start making dangerous decisions. The next few days turned into a quiet war. No shouting, no dramatic confrontations. Just silence on their side, and action on mine. I knew I needed something stronger than words, something they couldn't ignore. So I hired a professional surveyor, not someone local, not someone connected to them, someone neutral, precise, someone who deals in facts, not opinions. He arrived early in the morning, equipment in hand, calm, focused. He didn't say much, just nodded, and got to work, measuring, marking, walking the boundaries slowly. Every step he took felt important, because this wasn't just about land anymore. This was about proving the truth. And when he finished, he didn't hesitate. He looked at me and said, "It's clear. No confusion, no uncertainty. The drilling site is inside your property line. Not close, not overlapping, inside, completely." I already knew it, but hearing it confirmed changed everything. Because now, it wasn't just my word, it was fact. I gathered everything, the survey report, the maps, the boundary lines, every piece of proof I had, and I sent it to them. Email, documents, attachments. Clear, direct, undeniable. I expected a response this time. Maybe an apology, maybe a pause, maybe even a temporary stop. But instead, I got nothing. No reply, no acknowledgement. And the next morning, the drilling continued, louder than ever. That's when it hit me. This wasn't a mistake anymore. This wasn't confusion. This was a choice. They knew, and they didn't care. And when someone knowingly crosses a line like that, there's always a cost. But even then, even knowing all that, I didn't expect what was coming next. Because there was something about that land, something I hadn't thought about in years, something I should have taken more seriously. Before I bought the property, there had been a survey, a geological one, just routine, nothing unusual at the time. The geologist had walked the land, tested the soil, checked the layers beneath, and before he left, he mentioned something, almost casually. There might be sulfur deposits underground. At the time, it didn't matter, because sulfur, when it's buried, when it's undisturbed, it just sits there, harmless, quiet. But if something disturbs it, if something drills into it, breaks into it, that's when it becomes dangerous. Toxic gases, chemical reactions, environmental damage. I remembered that, and suddenly, everything made sense. The drilling, the depth, the location. They were going too deep, too fast, and they had no idea what was underneath them. So I warned them, not once, but clearly. There could be sulfur underground. You need to stop. Before you hit something dangerous. I made sure they understood. This wasn't just about property anymore. This was about real risk. But their response? Nothing. Not even a reply. They ignored it, like they ignored everything else. And then, it happened. One morning, everything changed. I woke up expecting the usual. The noise, the drilling, the constant mechanical sound. But instead, there was silence. Complete silence. And for a moment, it felt strange, unnatural. After days of non-stop noise, the quiet felt wrong, like something had shifted. I stepped outside, looked toward the site. No movement, no sound, just stillness. And then, I felt it. A vibration, low, deep. Like something moving beneath the ground. Not loud, but powerful. A rumble. It rolled through the earth and into the air. And then, the smell. It came fast, sharp, burning, unmistakable. Rotten eggs, sulfur. I didn't need confirmation. I already knew. They hit it, and everything that followed happened all at once. Workers started shouting. Machines shut down abruptly. People running in different directions, some covering their faces, others trying to disconnect equipment. Panic, pure panic, because they understood too late what they had done. But by then, it didn't matter, because once something like that is released, you can't take it back. At first, it didn't seem catastrophic,
just a smell, just discomfort. But that was only the beginning, because the real damage doesn't show immediately. It spreads, slowly, quietly, and then, all at once, the trees closest to the site were the first to react. Their leaves started changing, green to pale, pale to yellow, yellow to brown, and then they fell, one by one, branches weakening, trunks drying, life draining out of them. And it didn't stop there. The damage spread outward, tree by tree, like a ripple, moving through the land. The soil changed too. What once felt rich, alive, now felt dry, dead, toxic. Even the grass couldn't survive. It withered, collapsed, disappeared, and then it reached the neighborhood. The same place that once looked perfect started falling apart. Lawns turned patchy, then brown, then empty. Trees that lined the streets started collapsing. The air became heavy, uncomfortable, unlivable, and suddenly, everything they controlled was out of control. Residents noticed immediately confusion, concern, fear. What's happening? Why is everything dying? Is this safe? Questions everywhere, but no answers.
Because for the first time, the HOA didn't know what to say. Because the truth was too big to hide, too obvious to deny, and too dangerous to ignore. Because this time, they didn't just break a rule, they caused it.
They tried to hide it. That's always how it begins. Not with truth, not with honesty, but with control. Control of the narrative, control of what people hear, and more importantly, what they don't. Statements were released, carefully written, carefully timed, carefully designed to sound reassuring. Temporary issue, minor disruption, under control. Simple words, short sentences, but behind those words, there was nothing. No real answers, no real understanding, no real control. Just an attempt to slow down the panic. Because panic is something you can't control once it starts, and they knew that. But the problem with reality is, it doesn't listen to statements. It doesn't care about polished emails or official announcements or carefully worded updates. Reality shows itself in ways you cannot hide. You can't cover it up, not when people can see it with their own eyes, not when they can feel it, in the air, in the ground, in their own homes, and definitely not when they can smell it. That smell, it became impossible to ignore. At first, it stayed close to the drilling site, but slowly, it spread, carried by the wind, through streets, through yards, through open windows. It slipped into homes, into furniture, into clothes, into everything. People started noticing it everywhere, in their living rooms, in their kitchens, even in their bedrooms. It wasn't just outside anymore. It was inside. And once something enters your home like that, it stops feeling like a small problem. It starts feeling personal, unavoidable, uncomfortable. And slowly, people started realizing something. This wasn't temporary. This wasn't minor. And this was definitely not under control. But panic doesn't arrive all at once. It builds, slowly, quietly, neighbor by neighbor, house by house. One person notices something, then another, then another. Until suddenly, everyone is noticing the same thing. People started stepping outside, looking around, observing things they had never paid attention to before. Their lawns, their trees, their gardens, and everywhere they looked, they saw the same signs. Something was wrong. Leaves weren't just falling, they were dying. Grass wasn't just dry, it was collapsing. Branches weren't just weak, they were breaking. And the air didn't feel right anymore. It felt heavy, thick, unnatural, like something invisible was pressing down on everything, on the land, on the homes, on the people. That's when the questions started. At first, quietly, neighbors talking to neighbors. What's happening? Have you noticed the smell? Why are the trees dying? Then louder, community discussions, phone calls, messages. Is this safe? Should we be worried? What aren't they telling us? The HOA tried to manage it. Emails were sent, notices were posted, updates were shared, all repeating the same message. Everything is under control. Again and again. But the truth? They had already lost control. And deep down, they knew it. But admitting that would mean facing the consequences, and they weren't ready for that. So they delayed, they minimized, they denied. But reality doesn't wait, and it didn't take long for the situation to grow beyond them. Authorities got involved, not because they wanted to, but because they had to. Environmental agencies, inspectors, regulators, people who deal with real problems, not polished statements, not controlled narratives, reality. They arrived with equipment, with tools, with questions that demanded real answers. They walked the land, examined the soil, tested the air, observed the damage, and what they found couldn't be hidden, couldn't be denied, couldn't be explained away.
And once the investigation began, everything started to unravel, step by step, layer by layer, like pulling a thread that slowly reveals the entire truth. Unauthorized drilling, on private property, no permits, no proper checks, no safety measures, no environmental planning, no risk assessment, nothing. Just action without responsibility. And that's when it became clear. This wasn't just a mistake. This was negligence. Serious negligence. The kind that doesn't just cause problems, the kind that creates disasters. And once that truth became public, everything changed. Because now, it wasn't whispers anymore. It wasn't rumors. It wasn't speculation. It was fact. And facts carry weight. Facts demand accountability. And facts have consequences. The lawsuits came quickly, fast, aggressive, unavoidable. From me, from residents, from multiple sides. Because this wasn't just about land anymore. This was about damage. Real damage. Homes affected. Families impacted. Health concerns rising. People reporting headaches, breathing issues, constant discomfort. Whether it was fully proven or not, didn't matter. Because fear is powerful. And fear spreads faster than anything else. Property values began to drop. Houses that once sold instantly now sat empty. Listings stayed active for months. No buyers, no interest. People didn't want to move in. And those already living there? Some wanted out, desperately, trying to sell, trying to leave, trying to escape. The perfect neighborhood was falling apart. Not just physically, but emotionally, financially, legally. Everywhere you looked, there was damage. The HOA couldn't keep up. The pressure was too much. Legal cases piled up, one after another, claim after claim. Millions in potential losses, endless legal battles, and no easy way out. Board members started resigning, quietly, suddenly, unexpectedly.
Some disappeared completely. Others tried to shift blame, point fingers, make excuses. But none of it mattered, because the truth was already out. They ignored warnings. They crossed the line. They made the decision. And now, they were facing the consequences. Months passed, time moved on, but the damage remained. Eventually, cleanup efforts began. Specialized teams were brought in. Soil treatment started. Chemicals were neutralized. Contaminated areas were isolated. Air monitoring systems were installed. Every possible step was taken to fix what had been broken. But here's the truth. Damage like that doesn't fully go away. You can treat it, you can manage it, but you can't erase it. Some things don't come back. The trees, those tall, strong, silent witnesses, gone. Completely. Decades of growth, erased in weeks. That natural barrier, the one that stood quietly between my land and theirs, destroyed. And with it, something else disappeared. That sense of separation, that quiet protection, that natural peace. The neighborhood changed, not just in appearance, but in feeling. Some families left, packed their lives into boxes, and moved away, unable to stay, unable to ignore what had happened. Others stayed, but even they knew nothing was the same, and nothing would ever be the same again, because events like that leave marks, not just on land, but on people. As for me, I stayed. Same land, same house, same porch, but not the same view, because now, when I sit there in the evening, I don't just see what's there, I see what's missing. Empty space, where life once stood. And every time I look out, I remember one thing. Boundaries matter. Not just lines on a map, but respect, understanding, limits.
Because the moment someone ignores them, the moment they believe they can take what isn't theirs, the moment they think they won't face consequences, that's when everything begins to fall apart. Slowly, quietly, and then, all at once.